of our vision, where our dreams are our lives. And you are who we needed to become who we are. Made it to my promise, where love's way is the light. You saw it in your mind, but now in your eyes it shines bright. Upward we've come to the mountains where all things are possible. You are who we needed to become who we are. 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 You are who we need to become who we are. Who we are. Who we are. Who we are.
The Stanford Stories, in the form and style that Reverend Edward Stanford Jr. knew and loved. Thank you for your presence here at this celebration of a man of God, a prophet of God. Please stand with a word of prayer. The Reverend Henry L. Porter II, pastor, West Coast, Sarasota.
Heavenly Father, we come today to honor the life of the Reverend Edward Stanford Jr. We are gathered here today not only to grieve his transition, but also to give thanks to you for his life among us. We are gathered here today not only to mourn over how different our lives will be without him, but to give thanks to you for how full our life was when he was with us. We are gathered here today not only to consider the shortness and uncertainty of life on earth, but to give thanks to you for the gift of life and the gift of family and the gift of friendships. Lord, we ask that you would comfort us this day as we come together to share love and sweet memories with one another. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
That song that we started off on, in 2013, we were at the banquet honoring him. And as we honored him, the song came. Who we are, who we are, who we are, who we are. You are who we needed to become who we are. We were at Michael's on East celebrating, and that song came. Later, when I was writing, I could hear the verse. We've made it thus far. So it's on the back of that program. We made it thus far through on a journey through the night. And so we sang that song. So that's his song. And as I was speaking with his wife, Mrs. Alice Stanford, my friend and my sister, she said to me, she says, I met him in the services, and that's what I wanted to happen. At the end, I want to do everything through the army because that's how I met him. I say, I remember that. She came, and my grandmother said to her, Mama, Jezebel Elkins, Mama said to her when Teet brought her home, Teet, that's my name for him. And so he said, she looked at Teet and she said, I thought you were bringing a woman home. That's a girl. And she still looks the same way, you know. So we've shared some really wonderful times. And she said, I'd like to keep this short, sweet, and like the services go, like he would do it. I said, well, we can do whatever you need done, Alice. I said, we're family. We're working like that, you know. And I said, whatever you need, we're always there, of course, as family, as family. Now, I put on my bishopry stuff today, but I was going to wear a suit. But I said, well, he's an elder. And let me just come to show you I do honor him highly. But I really want to put on my suit so we can, But it was in the memory and the form of what he does and how it happens. So one day I was sitting down at the organ we were playing, and he came up to me and he said, I like the way you do that. He said, play that again. So I played it again. And he said, I like that. So I'm going to do that song. It's called Change, just a part of it. Change, great change. And you'll hear the part I'm talking about. That's the part he liked.
just want to thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
So that's the part he liked. That's what he liked. And so every time he say, Papa, he didn't call me Papa. But Henry later years, but he called me Papa all the time because he's my big brother. And I mean, they were big giants during that time because, you know, the difference in our age, I was a little big giant. And then he went off into the army services, and that in itself was an experience for us because he didn't tell mother he was gone. No. So mother looked for him, couldn't find him. Somebody said, try the Red Cross. The Red Cross found him. He at Fort Benning, Georgia. And he had volunteered, and my mother said, T. Oh, she had something to say, believe me. But it was such an experience because he took us, you know, you learn from your relatives. And those, if you love her and you say you love her, then what you would see is that you love the people they love. And the life gets to be more wonderful and even more beautiful. For the reading of the Holy Word, the scriptures, nephew, Troy Bellamy.
The scriptures of the Lord are so easy, but this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do to this point in my life. But I'm going to do it. I have so many stories to tell about Uncle T. If you'll indulge me for a moment, I remember as a child when we first moved from Delaware to Sarasota in 1975, At that time, Bishop was still teaching up in Tallahassee, so he wasn't home. But the first person I met was my Uncle Teet, my oldest uncle. And he was so funny and so gregarious. And he had this infectious laugh that just made everybody, we tried to laugh just like him, you know. He's always, you know, he and my mother always had good times. They eating crabs and stuff together and being out in the yard with Ed and Michael. And at that time, Jathan and Janine, they weren't born, but we had such good times laughing and being together. And that, you know, in 1975, 76, Uncle Teet really didn't go to church like that, you know. You know, Uncle Henry had service, we were right there. We were right there. Ma had us right there on the road. When we get on that bus, you know, he'll drive the bus. He made sure he drove the bus because he said that's what his mother said, you know, they look out for each other. So wherever we went, wherever Uncle Henry went, wherever the service was, whether it was Palmetto, whether it was Mulberry, I remember those times we went, those small towns, and every summer, you know, of course, the bus would be down in the yard, and every summer they'd go off somewhere exotic, California. It's like, oh, man, I want to go. You know, to us, you know, as kids, that seemed exotic. But they were gone all summer, and we couldn't wait for Uncle Teet to come home because he always had something for us. He always had a hat or some gift or something that he had for us. And so, you know, it's with a heavy heart, but a happy heart because he's gone home. He's completed his mission. He's done what the Lord told him to do. And I remember in 1970, right around 79, when we first got to office, and like I said, at that time, Uncle Teet wasn't, you know, he'd go to church every now and again. He drove the bus. That was he felt like that, I drive the bus. I'm not going in, I'm not, you know. And then all of a sudden, you wake up, and they're having services at the office, and the office is crowded. They had to move from my grandmother's house to the office, because the house would be crowded. Then all of a sudden, they started having service. I get up in the morning, shoot, Uncle Teet gone, let me go ride my bike. I ride my bike over to the office, and it's packed, and everybody just loving each other, trying to grow and learn more about the Lord. And then all of a sudden, Uncle Teet started ministering. Yep. And I was probably 12 or 13 at that time, and I remember it very vividly, because at that time, like I said, he never really participated in the services. But then all of a sudden, he'd step forward, and God began to manifest that gift that was in him. Yes. And took him to places he never thought he'd go. Africa, Europe, Jamaica. So I'm thankful to you, Uncle Henry. I'm thankful to God. I'm thankful to my grandmother. I'm thankful to my mother. I'm really thankful to my Aunt Alice because she let us have him. Thank you, Aunt Alice, for everything you did. Sometimes, you know, folks don't know what you have to go through sometimes when you're trying to take care of a loved one. But let me tell you something about this lady. That is a trooper in spirit and in truth. All right, I'm sorry. I digressed. I very rarely get the mic anymore, so you know if you'll, as my cousin, the pastor, Henry Porter, would say, would you rest upon your feet with me for a moment? The Holy Word, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 24 through 32. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yes, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. Be not afraid of sudden fear, nor of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in the power of thine hand to do it. Say not unto thy neighbor, go and come again, and tomorrow I will give, when thou hast it by thee. Devise not evil against thy neighbor, seeing he dwelleth securely by thee. Strive not with a man without cause, if he have done thee no harm. Envy not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the froward is abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. Thank God for the hearers and doers of the word. You may have your seats.
I don't have very many stories, but I can tell you this, that my Uncle Teet was one of the most generous people you would ever want to meet. If he had any food, anything, you could count on Uncle Teet to share it with you. The only thing that he was not inclined to always share with you was his crabs. Because if you don't know what you were doing, you were going to mess up his crabs. We always knew after school, we knew Uncle Teet would have two things. Uncle Teet would always have 50 cents for you to go to the snack machine. And if he didn't have 50 cents for you to go to the snack machine, he had the key for you to get in the snack machine. Everything was all right. Now I'm going to say this, and those who are in the know, you know about this. Does anybody in here besides me know about the snake? Yes. Ask them privately what the snake is. But for those of us that know, Uncle T loved us all, and he loved us enough to introduce us to the snake when things were not quite what they should be. The word of God from Romans chapter 1. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you always in my prayers, making request, if by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey by the will of God to come unto you. For I long to see you, that I might impart unto you some spiritual gift, to the end ye may be established. That is, that I may be comforted together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and me. Now I would not have you ignorant, brethren, that oft times I purposed to come unto you, but was led hitherto, that I might have some fruit among you, even as among other Gentiles. I am a debtor both to the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise. So as much as is in me, I am ready to preach the gospel to you that are at Rome also. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. For it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith.
Praise to God. I reach out to give God the glory. I reach out to give God the praise. I sing out with the voice of thanksgiving. Oh yes. 'Cause in my heart, Jesus gets all the praise. Glory and honor are his. Oh, glory, glory and honor are his. Oh, glory and honor
celebrates him. The first page, it starts off, he's telling his own story. These are his words where he tells the story, how things happen with his life. It rolls on over, and as you see, his lovely wife and his children. But he tells the story of what happened to him. And also we have other people who tell the Stanford stories. Wonderful stories, beautiful stories of how my brother, strange thing happened to us. Wallace, you'll remember this. We were up in New York City, had just gone to the Wall Street camera shop. And I was inside, but there's somebody that came along when the bus, they would and start banging on that bus side saying, "Is Henry Porter in there? I'm from Sarasota," right? I'm in New York City, right? We're in New York City. And our cousin Wallace, who's here, he came there, and it was such a reunion in New York City. We weren't expecting that. But he said he was just talking about us and telling somebody about the ministry when the bus passed by New York. And you heard Troy, when Troy gave the story. Well, the fact was that from 69, he was around 70, he was around 80, he was around 81, 71, 72. But as he said, he was not into fasting and prayer. But he was definitely into love. And love makes it all work. That's what makes it work. So when he came to the office, we'll tell you a little bit more about that, but I don't want to get ahead of some of the other people with the Stanford stories. Some wonderful things that happened to some wonderful people that made all the difference in the world. There's the bishop, W. James Brown, Jr. All of us on the first tours together, Bishop Brown, the Stanford Stories. And he knows what it means to sit down there in that same bus seat. How you doing, Bishop?
Great. Well, I'm the other brother, the other younger brother. From the other mother, maybe. But Brother Stanford, we called him brother, we called him T. He didn't mind, but he became elder, reverend. He became a man of God. I was the other bus driver that drove on the first tour. It was the two of us. But I remember him as being, as everyone else does, laughter, fun, cut jokes. But something else you all may have missed, you all talked about crabs. There was also shrimp. There was shrimp, there was seafood. Because when we wanted to gorge ourselves way back, we used to go to Red Lobster. Red Lobster was the place where you could order a bowl of shrimp. Shrimp that was any way you wanted them. But he loved them when they were steamed. Don't bother his bowl of shrimp. Amen. Don't. I wouldn't. Amen. But what I remember him of, he was my friend. He was my brother. And I say that because on the second tour, I did not go. And he trusted me so much, Sister Alice, that he left his house with me. He left his house with me. I took care of his house on that second tour that I did not go on. And that showed me how he loved me, he trusted me, he was a part of my life. He was just a tremendous man, a fun person. I mean, we laughed and we had fun together. And I'm so appreciative of the things that he imparted into my life. I learned to laugh. I learned to have fun. And let me tell you, I know where he is, Sister Alice. He's in a wonderful place, still laughing, having fun.
Thank you. We call him Brother Rock. While we're traveling, we stopped in a city in Texas. And while there, the church was in front of a small house on the same properties. And these little kids came out to the services. We went into the neighborhood, and they came out, and they loved the meetings. They were little Mexican kids, of Mexican descent, I should say. And they were coming into church service, come on the bus, loved to be with us, cried when we left. And Michael Raina is all the way in here from San Antonio, Texas. Michael, will you come up, please? I'm not going to pull you too much. His wife, Rose, is with him. If you just say his name, that would be enough. I wouldn't. Y'all remember Michael, everybody? This is Michael. And Michael calls him, what you call him?
Uncle T.
All right, this is Uncle T. Michael, when he got the news, he wrote back immediately and said, I'm on my way.
I had to be here to pay my respect to Uncle T. He was a great man. I'll miss him always.
Okay, I know you're short on words, but that's okay. But he wanted to do this, and he just loved him. And oftentimes when Michael went back over to Texas and all, he would contact and call and check on Uncle T, because that's the way that Uncle T made him feel. Michael Raina, all the way in from San Antonio. The Stanford Stories, just part of the stories, but the Stanford Stories. Later, when my brother had started this thing, Joyce told him, she said, Papa is over there, and Mother said, don't leave him. Mother had just passed away. And in his bed, he was there. He got up. Alice remembers all the stories. You'll hear something. Got up out of that bed and came over to the office, 3080 North Washington Boulevard. When he stepped in the door, the strangest thing happened to T. It was out of love, because it said, Mother said, don't leave Henry alone. Don't leave Joyce alone. Then I had this letter, and I said, this letter Mother wrote me. He said, this letter Mother wrote me. So the letter said, Henry, take care of Joyce and T. Then T had a letter that said, T, take care of Henry and Joyce. Then we discovered Joyce had a letter that said, all handwritten. And we took it to heart. Said, whenever they need you, drop everything you're doing. So no matter what he was doing, as you read his own story, he was working other places, but whenever it came time, we say we needed to drive, he took that bus, and that's what we did. He would drive, get off from work, whatever it took. It was in his heart. But when you read the story, you'll see more about it. And so it makes a big difference in the lives of people. So once his vision started, once he saw that big white stallion stomping the head of a serpent, and he never forgot it. Matter of fact, when I was talking with him recently, I said, tears just entered his eyes, because he remembered that so well. That big stallion, white stallion, like perfect in shape, color, and it was stomping this head of this serpent in the spirit. In later years, he would talk about things, and his eyes opened, and he was marveling at these things. It was getting me too. This is my big brother. You know, I'd never seen teeth like that. But God changes people. And so when we went to Florida A&M University in 1972 to the Palm Sunday service, There were people, auditorium, the auditorium was packed. And only a few people, maybe 10, 20 or so, came down an altar for prayer. So I said, come on the stage. And when I said that, the whole audience got up. And I said, oh my God. And so I was praying for every individual. And what shocked me, the very last person in the line was my brother. And he accepted the Lord because he said he'd wait till he gets his prayer home. That's what he felt. Door bouncer for the palms of Braden. But he loved the Lord. So he had this vision. And then it started happening more and more. The Reverend Dr. Maria Watkins has a Stanford story. What happened to her? Dr. Watkins. How you doing, Ria?
Stanford extended his hand of love toward me. I love you, Alice, and your family. I walked in that back door back there, and he was in the back, and he stretched out his hand. I had moved here, and he said to me, girl, you ain't got no family down here, with a big old smile. And I said, oh, no, you're not going to try to be my daddy or something, are you? And he said, can't nobody be your daddy but your daddy. But somehow I knew in my heart he would look out for me, and that he did. But the part that really got me was as he began to grow in ministry, I'll never forget, Bishop Perret had come, and he had a desire in his heart, and Bishop Porter walked on the stage and said, because Reverend Stanford had a desire to do that, to operate in that manner of gifting. And Bishop Porter said to him, you already have it. So lo and behold, following service, I was sitting right over here. And Reverend Stanford was standing there, and he began to call out people's driver's license. Well, this particular night, he said, W325. I jumped up and started walking toward him. He had not even finished calling out the number, but somehow inside I knew it was me. He said, 325. I took a step. 545. I took another step. 64. I was in his face. And he said, 606. I said, oh! He called out my number. So, and people were wondering, well, she doesn't have a driver's license. Well, I remembered that was just something I did. I remember my numbers. So while I was standing there marveling, he said, 266. I'm not going to tell that. But I thought about that later, Bishop. he called out my Social Security number. I was bent over in tears, crying, and there were some concerns I had, and they told me, say, see, God is concerned about your social status, and he knows everything about you. I was marveling because that night he called out both my driver's license and my Social Security number. I'll never forget how kind he was. And Reverend Stanford, I say, will give me a fit, but in a good way. Sometimes at night he'd call the house. You ain't got nobody in that house with y'all, dude. But he was looking out for me. You know what? I really appreciate it. He was a kind man. And when I was with him by myself, I literally called him Uncle T. So that was my uncle too. But I love him and I loved you all so much. Thank you for having me today.
So she shared that story with me. I said, wow. All of those things. That's why some of our tapes are not available. But and that was no hacking at any type. That was the Holy Spirit doing something to help people. And it surprised him. He was in awe every time that happened. Every time. He'd come to me and he'd say, Papa, I see so-and-so. And he'd start crying. Couldn't touch it because it was so real. He'd see fire burning, or the cherubims when they first arrived here at the church. And he said, there's a noise like a train going on. And he looked up and the cherubs were here with the wheels, and the four wings and the eyes and the wings. And the other thing that happened, my son had been sick. Etienne was a little baby. He was a little baby, and he had gotten hypoglycemia. And we brought him on the stage, and we began to pray for him that he would not, because Etienne used to shake like this all the time. And we were on the stage, and I began to pray for him. And my brother's eyes got that big. You know how his eyes would stretch, because he's seeing these things. And so he said, that cherub just took a feather out of his wing, and the feathers have eyes in them. And he said, and had a tear. And he took that tear and he rubbed it over Etienne's body. Etienne has never been sick again. So these are the Stanford stories. The Stanford story goes back also, what happens when you get discouraged or other things happen? God is always there at the point of your need, always. The Reverend Al Whitaker from Tallahassee, Florida, has come in. And Al had a story. Tell your story.
I came to West Coast Theological Seminary in 1992 and 1993. It's always good to have a prophet and a seer in the house, but especially to be your friend. During that time, I was discouraged. Had a couple of guys, 3 or 4 guys that would constantly peck on me. So I decided one day when Bishop was getting ready to leave town that I was going to leave too. I called my wife and told her, I'm coming home. She said, did you talk with the bishop? I said, no, he's getting ready to go out of town on Monday. I'll leave once he leaves. So that Monday, I was packing. I was getting ready to go home. Then all of a sudden, I heard a knock on the apartment door. It was Reverend Stanford. He came in, he took his normal position, kind of laid on the little freezer there. He said, Alfonso, how you doing? I told him, I'm doing great. How about yourself? He looked at me. I knew I was getting ready to leave. So he said, are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm doing good. He said, Alfonso, I was in my garage. An angel appeared and told me, go to the church right now and encourage Alfonso. He said, stop doing what he was doing. And he said, he came to the church. He said, Alfonso, if you leave now, you won't get what you came down here for. He prayed for me. I stayed. I thank God for the seer, for my friend, for if he had not shown up, when he had shown up, I wouldn't be here today. Thank God. Thank God for the seer. Thank God for the friend. Thank God for my friend.
The 3 of us, Bing, Teet, and I, we were the cooks for this reunion, and we cooked mullet fish. And I mean, I hope the fish was done because we did our best in there. As time passed on, Teet and I got our driver's license. And Uncle Ernest had a car that he drove to work. So every Sunday, Uncle Ernest would let Teet and he would let me drive a car that he used to drive to work. We drove it all over Sarasota. We went from Newtown to the Ringland Winter Camp. We went to Fruitville. We went to some places downtown, but we rode all over the place. And I remember one time, Ernest, which was my uncle, which is Reverend Bishop Porter's dad, Ernest told us that next time when you drive the car, leave me some gas in there so I can go to work. But gas was only, I think, 37 cents a gallon. And we just rode it out. But after Ernest told us that, we started putting at least a couple of gallons of gas in the car. It was I believe it was a 1947 Plymouth that he let us drive, but we drove it all over the place. But I remember one instance, shortly after Bishop was born, Teet told me, and I've forgotten how old Bishop was, But T told me, he said, man, so you need to come down here and listen to my baby brother play this organ. I said, he can play it as young as he is. He said, yeah. So I went down there, and it seems that Uncle Ernest and Aunt Hazel had bought Bishop Porter. If I'm mistaken, call him Henry Lee, you'll understand. But they had bought him something that on one side it had a record player, and in the other part there was this organ. So I went down and I heard the organ before I got there, and I couldn't figure out who that was playing that thing, because he was really playing it. And I came in there and sat and listened to Henry Lee play, and it was really beautiful to listen to him play. But it had the record player and the organ, and he did a super job.
It was a Thomas organ.
Was it? So, Teet and I had some great times, even when we went to FAM, because I went to FAM first, and then Teet came on later. And I lived in Sampson Hall. Any of you know about FAM? You know, there was Sampson Hall, and I can't think the name of the other hall. NB Young, next door. So we spent a lot of time together talking and going. I forgot to tell you that when we drove the car, we never picked up any girls. We didn't. And Ernest never asked us about it, but we just rode all over town and just had us a good time. Am I 2 minutes up?
But you know what I want? Now, we called him Buster. I hope you don't mind. Do you remember, because I still have the record?
Oh, goodness gracious.
When you and T went to Cape May. You remember that?
I do. We were working our way through college, went to Cape May, New Jersey, and did hotel work. Uh-huh. And in Cape May, there was it's a thing that it's similar to what you would use to make pictures. And you know the little booth that you would get in and take your pictures? Well, in Cape May, there was this booth where you could sing, and it would record it. And I don't know how Henry Lee got the record, but Henry Lee has that record that Teet and I made up there in Cape May. You still have it?
Still have it.
Do you? And what was the name of the song?
Good night, sweetheart.
Yes. That was the song. But
I was impressionable.
Yeah, we had us some really good times, Teet and I. We really did. And when Henry Lee came along, we thought we were going to have to add him to our group, but we didn't. He was too young.
Thank you, Buster. That's my cousin, Stuart Baker. The Stanford Stories. If you can make it pop, bud, play, rise, honor another, the Spirit of God commands that you do so. This is the Spirit of God who, knowing he could, sent Jesus who would make it pop, bud, play for others in the entire world. Reverend Stanford had that spirit, and God trusted him to do the work of an evangelist and a prophet. So how do we know? We know by his works, by his fruit. The gathering of the body, the unity of the faith, the compacting of the body of Christ that edifies itself in love, that rescues the lost, builds up faith, settles the confused, answers the seeking, prospers those who hearken to the words. And with loving kindness, he spoke to people. He ministered God's truth with mercy and understanding. He never forgot from whence he had come. He always stood in awe of the vision that God had given him, action, word, and enthusiasm. His attitude was not, why me? He was fearfully respectful of the wonderful things of God. He was not self-assured. Instead, he always sought counsel, because he said, he likes that song, I want to be right. So he was not heady or based in self-confidence. And this celebration is in the form and in the style that Reverend Stanford knew, loved, and practiced. He's my mother's firstborn child, the object of her love and affection and full attention. She allowed him to do far more than she allowed me to do. My brother do something, she said, Henry Lee, don't you ever. Then after Teet did something she didn't approve of, she emphatically said, don't even ask me. And I'm a little boy, and she's telling me all those things that, because my brother had said some, he was just himself. And so when he wanted to go places, because she never allowed me to go nowhere, like Kate May, nowhere. She allowed Teet to go stay with Uncle Virgil, Joyce to go stay with Aunt Vivian, our only living aunt that's left there. But I tell you something, never me. So that's what you get for having big brothers and big sisters like that. But then we made a surprise visit. I had gone to the prison, and the Lord told me to work with a young man. He was standing on the side, big full afro, young fellow. The Lord said, I want you to stick with him. So I told the young man, I said, the Lord told me to stick with you. And this is before my brother started having visions. But I said, he later met with me. I went to the prison, and I met with him, and he said, you don't have to put on the jailhouse religious thing to me and make big promises like God can do stuff. He says, I'm here. I release you from this because I'll be here for 25 straight years. I have a 25 mandatory year, mandatory quarter, he called it. And I said, well, that's something, because the Lord told me to stick with you. So since he told me to stick with you, I know I'll be living for 25 years, so I can really do some planning. And we stayed until he was released, and my brother was able to greet him here in the church, sitting on the third row when he was released after 25 years. No, he's not here. I said when he came back, he sat there. So I went to see his mother because you get to know people in their families. 42 years we were doing ministry in the prisons, and he served in that capacity too. So I went to this woman's house. We just stopped by because that was Michael's mother. We just stopped by, and we were riding on back to Sarasota. So we stopped at the house and knocked, and she said, oh, I'm so glad to see you. Wait just a minute. So we said, okay. And we waited 1 hour. We waited 2 hours. She left us at our house. We were planning to be back in Sarasota for service on Wednesday. And she finally got back, and she came back with these big trays like this of chicken and all. She had gone to the grocery store. She worked at the school, had gone to the grocery store, bought chicken and everything, went to the school with her key, fried the chicken and all at the place, and came back and left us at her house. So we didn't make service that night. She said, I prayed this morning. I had gone through some trouble, and I prayed, God, surprise me. And he did. She said, you surprised me. Then we went home. When we got home, but we couldn't leave her like that. So when I got home, I said, I like that prayer. I like that prayer. Surprise me. I said, God, surprise me. I was in the Sunday morning service, and my brother, Reverend Stanford, stood up and he called out my Social Security number. He didn't know it. He stood there and called my number, and I looked, and he said, you asked God to surprise you. And then he ministered to me and told me some other things. So I tell you, see, driving the bus was not a salaried position. Reverend Stanford saw it as his ministry, so he did it joyously. And so after we had gone on these trips, he was saved, beautifully saved, and he shared his convictions, and his loyalty ran deep. As time progressed and the Lord increased us, it was my conviction that I would not write a check for me, for myself, if I could not write one for him, remembering his faithfulness, his significance, and his place in history. Because he who helps his brother helps himself. And that's what he had done for me, helping me. It is written that those who honor their father and mother, counting them worthy of their best, shall get the best for themselves. So when my sister-in-law, and I don't think I ever called her that, but that's what, because we always been like Alice and Henry, and T. So when she said to me, she said, Henry, I really want to be able to come back in church. And she said, I want to be able to enjoy myself. Could we make this where it could, you keep it joyous in the form of how Ed would do it? And I said, I can do that. She says, because I love my church. And she says, I want to be able to come back in church. But if you have it the traditional way, I can't return. And I said, oh, yes, you will. We're about almost at the end of this thing. I'm trying to keep my hour and 30-minute commitment. It's okay. And so in the HLPA, which is the Henry L. Port Evangelistic Association, our mindset and our voice have always been, we're in it for the long haul. My mother said that, my dad, Mr. and Mrs. Ernest and Hazel Porter, Mother Lester May Bellamy, who loved him, and the Reverend Dr. Cynthia Porter, Cynthia, my wife, loved him. And she was the one that kind of phrased that all the time. We're in this for the long haul. Mrs. Yvonne Henderson, who rode on that bus, and when God healed her from cancer, in it for the long haul. Many, many more. All praise belongs to God. God allows people to live long for a purpose. Abraham lived long for a purpose. Israel, Moses had purpose. And God has a purpose for life, even if that purpose is for others to see God's intent. The enemy of good will attempt to make us delay our sign work beyond God's appointed time on his timetable. It's his prophets like Reverend Dr. Edward Stanford Jr., who admonishes us. He admonishes us to rise to the present hour because there's fresh water all around. So when I told him, and he came up to me and he said, Henry, he said, I really want to know how to use that. How do I use this gift? So he said, this may be my last time to go to Africa. I said, well, Tia, I think you're healthy enough to go places. So he went to Nairobi, Kenya. We had a first meeting at the Kenyatta Conference Center. They turned away about 2,000 people to seats, thousands. But he got back at the National Auditorium. And he said, Henry, I said, come up on the stage, because we share the stage. We don't sterilize you. He got there, and he looked up, and he said, I see this name. I said, say it. He said, I don't know how to say it, but it's spelled up, and it's in a cloud. And he spelled this name, and the Africans in Kenya, the Kenyans yelled back, Masungu. Way up in the balcony back. This girl starts screaming, that's me, that's me. And he told her what was going to happen and how God was going to bless her. Those gifts are given to stir up the faith. And she came down on that stage in Nairobi, Kenya. And I mean, the house was out. But that's the way he was. That's just the way he was. He did it from his heart. He did it out of love. And faith works by love. So if you can love, it makes all the difference in the world. The wonderful part was that as we sat, and you should see him when he smiles and loves himself some Brandon. And the beautiful part, another beautiful part is that Chase Major was being expected. And Alice related that. We talked that morning. She related it so well. I said, have you called Jathan? I think maybe you need to call Jason. She called me early that morning. And I said, maybe. She said, well, I'm going to wait because they're having the baby there. I said, maybe Alice, before people get to him or somebody sends him a text, because they will text everything. I said, why don't you get, so she said she was on the phone. And at the time she was on the phone, she heard her phone say, bing, bing. And Chase was saying, hi, hi, you know. And the new baby was born. And just about that time, she said, I was just about to call you to tell you something else. He said, make sure you show Dad these pictures. And she said, he's seen them. That's the way she says it. And then she told him, and if you could see the good spirit. So they asked, how's the family doing? You know when you know someone served well, did well, was friendly, and all that they could do, and how he was used, you don't know how it is. You don't know how it is if you ever have a kidney stone. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was in the apartment back then. I fell down on that floor. I was hurting. Everything was hurt from here to there to everywhere. I did not know what was wrong. So you know what I did? I'll tell you what I always did. I called my bro. I said, T, come here. T would get up, no matter what, because he said, Henry want me. Henry want me. So he came over. I said, T, I'm hurting so bad. I don't know what to do. He looked. He said, He says, there's a little thing in there. It's real round. It's small, but it's got little hooks on it. And the hooks keep grabbing onto your skin inside that vessel. I said, what's that? I don't know. I said, well, we're going to take care of this. Went down to the hospital, passed the kidney stone, and then they did the analysis and all the stuff. And what it was like that, and it has these little things. That's what makes it hurt so bad, because it's grabbing on the inside of the nerves. My brother saw that. How does he do it? He's amazed, because he'll come up and say the things like, I'll be ministering on the stage. Tell you one last thing, and I'll close this. Another story. Pastor Updegrove was here, and he loved what was happening. And he came to me and he says, what's going on now? So he right over to the stage, he saw these angels come in, and he said, they have a bowl. I said, have a bowl? He said, yeah. And they have something in it. It was a pestle and mortar. And he said, they're mixing up some solution. I said, oh, yeah? He said, yeah. So as he was ministering, they took the solution out of the bowl and placed it in people's teeth, and the people had their teeth filled. So one day when Brother Updegrove come, I said, well, the people want to see Brother Updegrove, but I wasn't going to do anything, right? Because I said, he came to see him. I'll announce he'll be back tomorrow. I was standing on the stage, and he came to me and he said, the angel is there with that thing you said. I said, oh, he said he has the mixture, and they're mixed it down, and God says he's ready to fill the teeth. One lady got, 9 fillings that day. But that's what happens when you have a prophet, because the Bible says, believe in the Lord, you will be established. But you believe his prophets, and you'll prosper. That's the way our lives have been, and that's the beauty that has happened. There's another song he loved, and he loved to hear some people sing, and that was Henry. He liked Henry a lot. Matter of fact, if you look in the book, it's a document. That's why we made it like a document. Near the end. Yeah. If you look at this page where the baby is, where Chase is, right across the corner, you see right here, you see that's my brother ministering. And he's ministering over in Africa. And the young man standing behind him is Henry. This is Aunt T, when T was graduating from high school, and that's me. And with my aunt and him, that's Hovind and Hadara with him later. In the middle is his receiving the doctorate degree, and Dr. Gordon awarded him this degree, and he's receiving the degree there, the doctorate degree. That's what that one is. And this is when he's in the Army, and Alice says it this way, oh, I remember that sweater. She was wondering. She said, how did you find all these pictures? I said, I got a lot of pictures of y'all, Clyde. I got a lot of stuff. Yeah, I keep stuff. And this is when they first came home, when he brought his young wife home. On the other side there, if you see this is the family. That's Mother, Joyce, T. You see how small I was. That's why they had me washing dishes every day. And I had asthma, right? I'd be washing dishes and wheezing. And Mother coming, why you got him doing that? And then the other thing was, we were in the washing machine, outside washing, I wanted to help. And I put my hand to put it in the wringer, those little wringers. And my hand got stuck in the wringer. And I was screaming. Mother came over, she did this. She hit that release button, pow, so my hand could be released because it was tearing through my fingers. And so she hit the release and she said, bow, and knocked teeth. So 2 times, pow, bow. Why'd you let his hand get in there? He said, Mother, you hit me on my ear hurt. I'll say, pow, not the other word like it. He played clarinet. And that's the clarinet picture with him and Mother. And up above is when he was in the Army. And he was in Korea. And we heard they had bombed that mountain where he was. But of course, he came back safely. and all the other things. There's a few more pictures, but I thought one of the most lovely ones was at the beginning when you have Ed and Jathan. And you know, I think about it, I said, he was that much younger than Ed? Look at And that was Alice's birthday. The other picture here with Janine, Michael, Joe, Jathan, Brandon, and their mother in the middle. So for some of the documentation, took a little while to do this, but
we have a lot of the Elkins. There's another side of the family here. My mother's name is Joyce Stanford. I'm proud to be a Stanford and an Elkins. And I have here a lot of our family members that you all may not know. Oh, I see Virgil Lee Elkins Jr. Glad to see you here. Glad to see my cousin here. Y'all give him a hand. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. But I have Uncle Teet's sisters, Sally and Sarah. If y'all stand up. They left? They went to, okay. But they are here. And then he has his nieces, my first cousins, and his nephew here. Priscilla, Shirley, y'all stand up, and George Stanford.
Hey, George.
They love their uncle. They ask about him, and they pray for him, and we have gotten to be closer together, and that's what it's about. Family needs to stick together. And I'm so glad that they're here to celebrate their uncle as well as my uncle, and we appreciate you. So we wanted to make sure that with all the other dignitaries, we recognize any other family who are here to celebrate with Uncle T. Love you guys.
All right, we just have some resolutions. I'm not going to read the resolutions, but I'm going to let you know who sent in the resolutions. And then we have some thanks and we'll be finished. Before then, I have to tell you, I don't know if any of you all have ever felt this before, but have you ever just had a part of your childhood that you remember so fondly that was so fun? Well, I can tell you my uncle made my childhood so much fun. We live right down the street from them, and I remember my uncle one time, he wanted to start a business, and he started with video games. He bought a whole bunch of video games, put them in the garage. And I don't remember how good the business went, but I think Uncle T got more joy out of putting credits on for me and Ed than anything. You know, you as a young person, and you walk into your garage, and you got 100 credits on each video game. I'm playing all day. My uncle, he's the kind of uncle that would go somewhere at spur of the moment. He want to go to the beach, let's go to the beach. You want to cook, let's cook. You want to eat, let's eat. My uncle went out and bought us a slip and slide. I don't know how many of you remember slip and slide. So we could just slide in the yard. Man, I had to tell him that. I spoke with him about 2 weeks ago. And I let him know, I said, Unc, you made my childhood so much fun. And I just want to thank you for that. Because it was so enjoyable. Joyous. That's the word, right? Anyway. Let me go ahead and do these resolutions. We have a resolution from the Florida House of Representatives. Representative Wingate Newton, District 70. He sent in a resolution to Reverend Stanford. We have St. Stephen's Cathedral Church of God in Christ Ministries. Bishop McKinney in San Diego, California, sent in a resolution. We have Bethel Metropolitan Baptist Church in St. Petersburg. The Dr. Ricky Houston is a pastor. He sent the resolution in. And we have a resolution from our home church, the Greater Hearst Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church. Reverend Keturah Pittman, pastor. Let's give them a hand. Just want to give a quick thank yous again to the bishops, elders, pastors, ministers, classmates, members, engineers, friends, and neighbors. Thank you for your presence, thoughtfulness, gifts, flowers, donations, and kind expressions. Video clip courtesy of Mrs. Amy Campbell. The gift of the afternoon repast courtesy of West Coast Sarasota, Pastor Henry L. Porter II. And we'd like to also thank Jones Funeral Home. Let's give them a hand, please.
Come on, put your hands together. Taking a trip to the city of Judah. Taking a trip to the city so fast. Taking a trip to the city of Judah. Oh, how I want. Oh, how I want to go there. Taking a trip. Taking a trip to the city of Judah. Taking a trip. Taking a trip to the city so fast. Taking a trip. City of Judah, city of Judah, I wanna go there. I want to go there. City of Judah, city of Judah, I wanna go there. I want to go there. I'm gonna live forever. I'll live forever. Do you wanna go there? Yeah. I want to go there. I'm gonna live forever. I'll live forever. Do you wanna go there? Yeah. I want to go there. There'll be peace and no confusion. Peace, no confusion. Do you wanna go there? I want to go there. There'll be peace and no confusion. Peace, no confusion. Do you wanna go there? Yeah. I want to go there. Oh, yeah. Somebody say yeah. Do you wanna go there? I want to go there. Oh, yeah. Somebody say yeah. Do you wanna go there? I want to go there. Oh, yeah. Somebody say yeah. Do you wanna go there? I want to go there. Oh, yeah. Somebody say yeah. Do you wanna go there? I want to go there. Oh, do you wanna go there? Yes to the Lord. Yes to His will. Do you wanna go there? Somebody say yeah. You see, my heart is fixed. My mind's made up. Can't nothing you do try to make me stop. The answer is yes. Do you wanna go there? Yes to the Lord. Yes to His will. Somebody say yes. Yes to the Lord. Yes to His way. To the Lord's will. I will obey. My heart is fixed. My mind's made up. Can't nothing you do. Can't nothing you do. Can't nothing you do. Will make me. Oh yeah. I love the Lord. He heard my cry. He kept His eye on me. Oh yeah. Do you wanna go there? I wanna go there. I want to go there. Yeah. Somebody say yes. Yeah. I wanna go there. I want to go there. Oh, say yes. Everybody say yes. Somebody shout yes. Do you wanna go there? 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 I want to go there. Do you wanna go there? I want to go there. Peace and no confusion. Peace, no confusion. Do you wanna go there? I want to go there. There'll be peace and no confusion.